Fatoumata. Très bien. On va passer à la deuxième keynote. Et la personne qui va l'assurer ce matin est habillée en tenue qui rappelle le Sénégal et le Wakanda. Mais le paradoxe, c'est qu'il n'y a pas orange au Wakanda. Mais cette personne va nous parler de l'aspect humain de la transformation digitale. Il y tient vraiment et il m'a demandé en fait de distribuer les micros pour qu'il puisse interagir en live avec le public. Donc vous aurez des micros baladeurs et vous pourrez interagir avec le monsieur en question. Mais par contre, il y a un problème. Ce monsieur ne parle que anglais. Il ne parle pas français. C'est pas, c'est pas un problème pour l'Américain que tu es. Désolé, Amadou. Mais je sais que c'est un problème pour certains. Mais on a anticipé. Il y a des casques qui sont disponibles. Pour ceux qui le souhaitent, ils peuvent se manifester. Ils peuvent juste me faire un coucou, comme ça. Voilà, faites-moi un coucou. Voilà, très bien. Donc les hôtesses vont venir à vous et vont vous distribuer des casques. Comme ça, vous allez avoir la traduction en français. Et si vous avez besoin d'interagir avec Stéphane, il n'y a pas de souci. Vous pourrez poser vos questions. N'est-ce pas? J'appelle Monsieur Stéphane sur la scène.
Thank you very much. Bonjour. Good morning. And thank you for having me. My initial thanks must go to Musa and the team. This conversation started out in California. Musa was visiting, and we were at the Orange Fob in Silicon Valley, where I've been supporting Orange and the entrepreneurs for the last 5 years. And even more so, Musa was there to learn more about the ecosystem and see how Orange globally and Orange in Africa can draw some knowledge, and he invited me here. Of course, a lot of the expectations for this was coming to Senegal, being able to be part of this and share with you some of our experiences and knowledge in the space and the sector. Digital transformation is always an interesting topic. I'm fortunate, very fortunate to live in a place where technology is not something we aspire to in Silicon Valley. Technology is actually a way of life, right? My next door neighbor in my home wakes up in the morning, leaves his house. It's California, the sun is always shining. He has solar panels on his roof, and he drives a Tesla, right? The sun is charging his car during the day. He drives to work. On his way to work, the kinetics of the wheels are keeping the battery charged. He gets to work, parks his car, there's a car charger there. He leaves work, comes back home, and the Tesla powers the house, right? So in a period where you find that digital transformation is going to be doing a lot, my presentation today is going to humanize the process of digital transformation. And I'm doing this because my colleague in previous keynotes has actually done a fantastic job of laying out the entire playing field, from the technical sides to the aspirational sides, and even down to the financial side. Of course, when I was preparing for this presentation, I talked to a few friends in Silicon Valley, and I said, hey, I'm going to Senegal. I'm going to be talking about digital transformation. I'm presenting to members of the Orange team from all over Africa. And they said, well, Stephen, one of them said, I need you to warn them about something. And I said, what do you mean warn them about something? It's digital transformation. I said, no. Have you ever seen the movie Transformers? How many people have seen the movie Transformers? Right? So we all pray for that day, right? Smart cars, smart infrastructure. Smart this, smart that, digital this, digital that. But the day you wake up and your car looks at you and says, I'm not going anywhere today. And then you put the key in the car and you say, will you start, you damn car? and the car stands up, and the wheels stretch out, and the car stretches out and stands 20 feet tall. I want you to remember this day and know that this is what digital transformation did to you, right? And that's the bad side of the conversation, right? That's Hollywood. Staying in Hollywood, as the MC said, I had to prepare for this. And when I prepare for talks around the world, I make sure that I actually look the part. So my entire outfit is a fusion. It's a fusion between Senegal and Wakanda, right? And in the interest of digital transformation, I'll tell you this, all of these threads here are actually business cards. If you come close to me and you touch it, my business cards go straight to your brain, and you will never forget me. Who wants to touch me? Anybody? Come on, guys, it's digital transformation. Come forward. There we go. Now she's on LinkedIn. She just joined me on LinkedIn, right? We just connected on LinkedIn, okay? And why do we say this? Because I'm an Afrofuturist. I believe in the future of Africa. I only sell the African future. And Black Panther, for all of the fiction that was in it, was actually the one time Hollywood was willing to tell that Afrofuturistic story, right? Because we've seen it with the other films, we've seen it with the other publications. But at this time, they talked about an Africa that had AI, an Africa that had deep learning, an Africa where women technologists were actually the leaders, and an Africa where security of information was actually going to be the key capital of the future. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the summary of digital transformation. If you're transforming your organizations digitally, and you're not empowering women leaders, you're not doing it right. If you're transforming your organizations digitally, and you're not focused on security, you're not doing it right. And finally, if you're transforming your organizations digitally, and this is where Orange has to get full credit, kicking off this show and bringing all of the Orange partners here, for me, was the highlight of my day, right? Because I'm seeing an organizational-wide effort, but I'm seeing it across countries in Africa, some of whom I've visited, but now I know I have touch points. Each one of you I want to meet personally because I have touch points now that I can reflect with when we expand these programs. And we know the responsible parties, we know the women who are backing them, we know the initiatives that they want to push forward, and then most importantly, we know that there's an institution like Orange that is leading the ferry. So, we talk about this Afrofuturism, and I always have this presentation, it's Africa Now and Africa Next. Africa Now is what we're doing right now. Africa Next is what we hope to be doing following the next wave of innovation, the next wave of activity, the next wave of talent development, and most likely the next wave of Black Panther. What will Black Panther 2, Black Panther 3 look like, right? Are we going to have it like the Fast and Furious or like, you know, any other Hollywood fictional story? Or are we going to actually look at those stories and realize that these are actual elements of Africa's future? And as aspirational as they are, they're quite indicative of things that we can do if we look into a room like this and gather a lot of inspiration from a room like this. So let's start with Africa Now. Africa Now from a venture standpoint. Digital transformation, for all of its pomp and pageantry, is nothing without proper infrastructure, is nothing without proper physical infrastructure that now translates or transmits into what could be the backbone of digital infrastructure. By that, Africa Now is such that we are now seeing a time where, unlike ever before, from the fiber optic cables that are running undersea all the way through Europe, there's a lot of infrastructure now that's going in to ensure that Africa is indeed a connected continent. You have companies like Convergence Partners out of South Africa, Helios, who are making sure that this infrastructure readiness and this infrastructure investments are being done now in partnership with a lot of large funded agencies. We have telcos like Orange, who are making sure that from a mobile communications level, all of these nodes are being connected and connectivity is going all the way down into homes. There is no way Africa can become digitally transformed if the right type of infrastructure and the innovation around these infrastructures are not properly presented. The previous keynote spoke about software-defined networks. It's important that we know that even in Silicon Valley, when we start to think about high-performance computing, when we start to think about virtualization, when we start to realize the fact that companies like Uber and Lyft and Airbnb, these are companies that were naturally built on the fact that GPS technology already existed and was functional. So from an infrastructure standpoint, if you're a venture capitalist and you're looking at Africa's future, you want to start by looking at where Africa's infrastructure can actually have byproducts. Because there is no Uber without GPS technology. And if you're an early investor in Uber, you would realize that those were known to the citizens of Silicon Valley is Google Maps. And Google went out and acquired companies like Waze, which were already doing the same thing. And now, if you're in an Uber or you're in a Lyft, you'll find that you're either using Google Maps or Waze. Why is this important? Because every day I wake up and I step out of my house, I expect that there will be horrendous traffic. And within that horrendous traffic, I need to know where to go, how to get there, what's on the way for my next meeting and the meeting after that. Google Maps then becomes a central point of infrastructure, digital infrastructure, that would guide my entire day. Then you think about a company like Uber. They're going IPO. What's their greatest detail? Why did Uber separate itself from a regular taxi service? Well, Uber was able to reprice a transportation model and do that in a way where even if I was sitting in an Uber right now and the traffic was 5 hours, unlike a regular taxi, I will not be charged per second for sitting down in the car. And they were only able to do that by plugging into algorithms that would allow them price based on GPS data. I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm trying to point out that power and how that power has transformed into regular transactional activity that we normally used to take for granted. We talk about capital. If there's anything Orange Digital Ventures has done very well is it has allowed for a capital structure, a VC structure within Orange to now start looking at infrastructure-ready startups. And some of these in agribusiness, in payments, in transactional activity, in education, health and information. Every single investment that has been made by ODV has an infrastructure dependency. But even more so, if you are an angel investor in this room, if you are supporting any type of activity within your local ecosystems at a country level, at a city level, at a municipal level, I want you to realize that the division of capital and the deployment of capital, whether that's corporate capital or it's personal capital, should have an eye on the infrastructure that's going to support that capital. And if you ever had a startup pitch to you, let infrastructure be one of the very first things that you want to query in terms of their dependency and their ability to scale. Finally, we're looking at an ecosystem. The ecosystem around us now is such that even here in Senegal, we're now having things like the Dakar Angels Network, which was just recently formed by a few of your colleagues and a few folks within this ecosystem. A lot of those folks, not only do they have angel capital to now start supporting the companies that will build Senegal's future infrastructure, but they also have the local knowledge of what works here. It's never easy for an Uber to come and localize itself in a country where they don't understand how the infrastructure works. And it's not even advised for them to do that. But more importantly, as we look at our local ecosystems, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Cameroon, we want to be able to, Sierra Leone, we want to be able to say what's attainable within my local market. And as we try to use Orange's infrastructure to attract startups to build more and service our clients on a B2B or B2C model, we want to keep in mind that the localization of infrastructure is one of the most critical aspects of it. This part is where I live every day. On an average year, I see over 1,000 African startups through my door. And within those 1,000 African startups, these are young people who are building the Africa that they want. The startup talent in Africa is, people say, is not spread evenly, opportunities are not equal. Where I come from, I say Africa knows what it wants, and whether you were born in Guinea-Bissau or you were born in Lagos, Nigeria, we're not always going to have a fair shake. But what happens is, at least with the young people that I see, each one of them is looking to solve a local problem. Each one of them sometimes has the aspiration of connecting with the diaspora who might help them globalize that problem. But what they're not doing is they're not taking regular jobs. They're not working in banks. They're not working in insurance companies. They're not teachers. They're not university professors. They're taking the risk to think that they have the knowledge, the tools, the resources, and the passion to go and solve these problems. And I must point out here that on a talent basis, I'm very pleased to be in Senegal today because my good friend Amadou, who I've known for the last 7, 8 years, is one of the reasons I even came to Senegal in the first place. With what Gebeya is doing right now and what he did in the past with Codas for Africa, there was a focus on saying, how do we actually improve the talent? How do we make sure that if Africa is going to get the next Uber, we can actually have a team of talented people that would build a company like that? How do we make sure that these talented people have the tools and resources to actually compete on a global scale to the extent that an Uber actually comes into their town? And then more importantly, how do we make sure that outside of the frailties of our institutions, the institutions that we know, the schools, the universities, that may not be good enough. Let's leave government alone right now, right? Let's leave them alone. They're not our problem right now. How do we make sure that we take responsibility for the young people in our neighborhoods, for the young people within our ecosystem? And how do we make sure we empower them? So I'm very, very pleased to see the growth and development that Amadou has done with Gebeya across the continent. He has done it with young people, aged 15 or less. He has done it with entrepreneurs and startups. But most importantly, and most recently, he has done it with women, right? It is my opinion that the face of the East African entrepreneur is female. I say this without apologies, and I say this because there is a drive for empowerment of women within this ecosystem to apply for what we call a multiplier effect. And as we look into the empowerment of women as a direct factor of digital diplomacy and digital transformation and digital entrepreneurship, we must realize that some of the problems we're willing to solve, if we don't have the right women in the room, we don't even have the context. And if those women who are in the room are not the ones actually developing the solutions, then we don't have a sustainable solution. So there's a lot of training that comes with that. Gebeya is doing fantastic work in that. There are other providers in this room doing fantastic work with that. Orange is investing in startups that are doing fantastic work with that. With the Orange infrastructure, there is a multiplier effect on the training tools and resources that are actually helping these getting to the networks that you serve. So these are all very, very critical and very, very supportive aspects of what it is. But let's talk about this transfer piece. The transfer piece is where we now find that the Africa that we want has a dependence, like my last keynote speaker said, on the diaspora. And we must be able to look at how Francophone Africa can do better outside of Paris, right? Outside of Montpellier, and outside of, in some cases, Marseille. And do better by extending that diaspora network in ways where folks who are looking at Francophone Africa do not think that they have to get through Paris to get to Ouagadougou. Folks who are looking at Francophone Africa do not have to think that they have to get through Marseille to get to Dakar. there is a direct dependency on how Francophone diaspora could actually create a transfer of knowledge systems, a transfer of capital systems, and more importantly, a transfer of innovation systems. Stanford University in Silicon Valley is the bedrock of what Silicon Valley does in terms of innovation and capital. But there are universities all over Francophone Africa. There are universities in Senegal, there are universities in Cameroon, there are universities in Guinea-Bissau. Let's not delve into quality indexes and whatnot, but let's delve into the fact that there are public funded technology transfer partnerships that are available for some of these universities and that folks in this room can actually activate and take care of without necessarily having to go to Paris, because we're all African and we can do it from an African scale. The Lions Africa program that I run is an initiative of the US State Department, and it doesn't speak to Anglophone or Francophone Africa. It speaks for all of Africa. We do three things. It's the three I's. It's investment, it's internationalization, and it's innovation. From an investment standpoint, we make sure we can foster that investment between international actors and their African partners. From an internationalization standpoint, I am a Pan-African globalist. I believe that Africa will do a lot of things with the rest of the world and also within Africa. That's why I said that first stage that came out, the first group that came out on stage was very fulfilling to me. And then more importantly, from an internationalization standpoint, we find that if we cannot tell these stories of Africa on a global scale, then what are we doing? How do we know that the market in Senegal is big enough for a startup in Senegal, when we have not given that startup the opportunity to get into Lagos, to get into Cape Town, to get into Kigali? How do we know that if we cannot force intra-trade activity in Africa, that startup cannot go from Casablanca and get to Barcelona? How do we know that if we're not actively making these startups think outside of their local markets? The Afrofuturistic approach that I speak about, the Wakanda, oh, by the way, if you're going to greet me after my keynote, if you don't greet me in the Wakanda way, I'm not talking to you. Yeah? So for those who haven't seen the film, this is it. Just say Steve and do this, and then we're brothers and sisters, right? But if you want to shake my hands, I'm not shaking hands. I'm not doing that. It's Wakanda or nothing, right? So in the interest of this Afrofuturistic approach, we have the people, everybody in this room. The fact that you're here today, credit to Orange for bringing such a stellar group of people together. But the fact that you're here today means that you are invested and committed to that future of Africa that you want. We have the places.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I have one question in the
sure.
previous slide. You were talking about the importance of training, but which kind of profile you think that will be accurate for Africa to tackle the digital transformation?
Yes.
Yeah, because now in the traditional program we are not in line with what is, let's say, needed to tackle the digital transformation. So what is, according to your experience, the right profile to develop? Do we need, for example, for our government to think about the program, the academic program for that?
Yeah. Fantastic question. I'll answer that with a very clear example. The fourth industrial revolution as a piece of economic history and the economic future is something everybody's talking about. But let me give you a project I'm doing with South Africa right now. South Africa has something called SALGA. It's the South African Local Government Association, SALGA. For the next 3 months, for the next 2 years, starting in September, every 3 months, the South African Local Government Authority is going to send 20 of their mayors to Silicon Valley to get trained, to create university partnerships, and then to go back to South Africa with industry-related partners for AI, ML, everything around digital transformation training, right? Now, we're starting with a policy angle because we know that for a lot of the industry processes we're going to bring in from the ground up, we need to have policy buy-in at the government level, right? But I did mention Gebeya. I did say that we already have private sector actors who are doing these things outside of the government influence because we can't wait for government all the time. From a curriculum standpoint, I can tell you right now that between Google, Facebook, Evernote, all of the companies we've brought into Africa from Silicon Valley, digitally, online, and for free, ladies and gentlemen. There are curriculum, correspondences, and training material that every single African with an internet connection can get for free. So what you find is it becomes information arbitrage. If you don't know it exists and you don't know where to go get it, then you're stuck thinking you have to go to Stanford to get it. No, you don't. Some of that Stanford information is available online for free. So how does Orange then become an actor in that space? How do we make sure that we can work with you in a way where you can actually maybe provide free connectivity into a place like this, and we bring in 1,000 Senegalese into this place, and they all get trained, right? Knowing that the actual resource from the almighty Google coming to them is free, knowing that the actual resource from the almighty Facebook coming to them is free, right? And all we need and all we know that they might not be able to afford is maybe connectivity. And in some cases, if you're in the likes of Lagos, Nigeria, power. So going back to that infrastructure, right? So we're not going to change our universities overnight, right? But we're going to use what's currently available and attainable at the least cost with the empowerment of institutions like Orange to drive it forward. And our young people are ready, ladies and gentlemen. They are ready. These are children of the internet. These are folks who were born without knowing what dial-up is. They never knew how to read a newspaper. Every video they ever watch is on YouTube, so they're digitally tuned in, right? They're digitally tuned in. Our responsibility then becomes the enabling environment, the enabling infrastructure. We have a question at the back. Yes, please.
Hey, actually, when I hear you talking, we kind of have two facts. The first is we have startups like Gebea and others that train people very well to enable them to have those skills we need. The second one is we hear every day big company here in Senegal saying they need very brilliant people to help them grow. But there is a third fact that is really, for me, not normal, like seeing people, those brilliant people we trained here, going abroad into France, Canada, and go working there. So don't we need to think in a way, don't we need to think in a way to maintain them here in order to grow first Africa before going abroad?
Absolutely. I'm going to answer that first of all. Is this a news camera, Musa? Is this news or just private? This camera here. Is it broadcast or private? Yeah. Okay, good. So you can record it. Doesn't matter. So as an African dictator, the first thing I'll say: seize their passports. Yeah. Seize all their passports so they can't leave. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But the point being, yes, even in California, we have people coming from Ohio who think they have to live in Silicon Valley to become tech, right? Human migration is not within our direct control if we think of it as a simple fix. It's an evolution of economic activity. But I'm saying that if I had a magic wand, for me to be able to do what you want in a way that's sustainable, I will invest in 30, 40 gebeas, right? And I will work with the gentleman who asked me this question about training and work with Orange and see if I can build 30, 40 infrastructure centers that can train these folks. Now, if I had to bring someone in here and offer them training for free on behalf of Orange, okay, let's say Orange said, Stephen, let's do this today. Then I can say to that person or that young person, hey, based on this training you're getting for free, you're going to have to work within an Orange-led facility or Orange-led program for the next 12 months minimum. I will pay them something that's quasi-competitive, right? So that they don't have an economic need to get out, right? And if they do get out, I will know that just like me, right? I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, but I've lived most of my life in California. Amadou has lived between New York, New Jersey. He's lived out, but we're back here. So it's not saying everybody's going to come back home. It's saying that for those who want to, for those who believe in this bad enough and know that they're not going to email the problem away, right? I'm not going to be on Facebook or Twitter arguing with Africans about what's good about Africa. If you want to fix Africa, come back and fix Africa. Come back and work at home, right? It's, it's not going to end in a Twitter feed, right? Don't do that. I'm not even on Twitter, but I hear about these things. And I laugh. I laugh when it's folks in my generation, right? Because it could be an older person who's disconnected, you know, who left Africa at a time where it was so bad. But when somebody asked me yesterday, you're going to Senegal to give a speech, do they have water? And that person is under 30, I'm embarrassed for them. I'm embarrassed for them because it's a mindset that means that if a non-African can think that way, an African who has cousins, family, friends in Dakar, and cannot tell me that there's a beautiful, beautiful place like this with excellent food, excellent Wi-Fi, excellent people, then it's their ignorance they have to deal with, right? And I leave them alone. But I'll seize their passport though, if I catch them, right? So on the training and transfer side, we must realize that this Africa that we want, this fourth industrial revolution, is ours to take. Nobody's going to give it to us, right? I spoke about South Africa because it's an active project that I have, but I just came from Nigeria, right? Yesterday, I closed a $9 million round for one of my energy companies in Nigeria. And guess what? My investors to that company were from Norway, from Belgium, and from the US. We had the largest venture fund in the US in energy. Breakthrough Energy Ventures put money in us. That was backed, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, if you Google them, Breakthrough Energy Ventures has Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Jack Ma, Vinod Khosla, Mark Zuckerberg. These are the LPs behind the company. We were their first African investment ever, right? Now, what's the backbone of that investment? I will tell you, it's just solar technology, okay? Nigeria, if you've ever been there, big problem with power. But we are offering solar technology in ways that are scalable. Our technology can power this entire hotel on solar. But what's more important? When we were trying to do this in the early days, we were getting grants from USAID and the likes. And they were telling us, go to the villages and power the villages. Great, we can do that. But those are not viable from a business model standpoint. Why will Bill Gates invest in a company like that? We had IoT technology, right? We had battery management systems. Every single one of my customers that's using my technology has, from my office, we can see what they're doing. If they don't pay, like Nigerians usually don't, we cut it off with a push of a button, right? So my financial model proves that it's sustainable. Now, there's still a lot of work to be done. But I'm trying to tell you how the Africa that we want, the Wakanda that we want, is actually here in Dakar, right? And it may not be for everybody to see, because just like Wakanda, right? Remember how you have to fly into a place, it looks like a mountain, and then you get in and then you see Wakanda? That's kind of how it is. When Amadou and I talk about Gebeya and the young people of the future, that's kind of what we see. But we still have to fight through the present, right? Africa now, Africa next. We are fighting Africa now to get to our Africa next. But we're not relenting. We are not relenting. So, and in all of this madness, in all of this talk, in all of this Afrofuturism, guess what, guys? The trend line is still up. It's still very much progressive. From a company like Orange, you can see it. It's better than it ever was. Now, you can see in the chart, there are dips and starts. There are times where it looks bad, right? Amadou and I were just about to do the first African Developer Conference in Ethiopia, right? And last week, you all know what happened in Ethiopia. And now, we're no longer going to Ethiopia. Now, we're pissed. Why? Because it's not about the conference. It's about the young people, the startups, the people who actually were going to use that as an opportunity for their next. It's about the investors that I was bringing from Silicon Valley to come to Ethiopia for the first time. It's about 9 months of work that we've taken in building to that time. But we have to deal with the politics of the land. But it's not enough for me to now say, Amadou, you know what? I'm going on Twitter. There's no way I'm going back to Ethiopia, and I'm going to tweet about all the wrong things about Ethiopia. What is that? We can't work like that. That's not who we are, and that's not the Africa we're trying to build. So across the trend lines, you will still see that the Africa we want is happening. It has its challenges, but the trend line is generally up. Why should you care? I have about 10 minutes, and I'm going to run through this. The money is coming in, guys. Startups across Africa last year raised $750 million. The numbers are real. These startups are around you. They are not futuristic. You can touch them, you can feel them, you can email them. Some of them are friends of friends, right? 30 of these startups raised over $5 million across the continent. Now, they still have the sweet spots, the Nigerias, the Kenyas, the South Africa. But with folks like Amadou around Dakar, we can make some of them happen here. Deals are getting larger. Orange has the data, right? The mobile connections are forcing this infrastructure conversation to come to your pocket. My driver in Nigeria has an iPhone 7. I don't even know how he afforded it. But he has it. And the reason he has it is because he has to be connected. He has to have information. He is raising his own personal sophistication. Companies like Orange, what you are building for the African future that you want is remarkable. But from a B2B to a B2C standpoint, you must realize that this digital transformation story is your story. It doesn't belong to anybody else. Why is this big? Because it's already happening. It's already happening. The information arbitrage is closing. It's closing. Some of these projects, these are projects that we're involved in between the US government and Africa. And it's doing everything from agriculture to banking to farming to entrepreneurship. With Demo Africa, in the last 8 years, our startups have raised over $90 million. And we've seen over 30 African startups incubated in Silicon Valley. Why do we do this? Say, 10 years ago when we started this, when you say Africa in a meeting like this in Silicon Valley, people stand up and walk out, right? Now people are asking me, when are you going to Senegal, right? It's very interesting for us to see how far we've come. And in this era, what's happening, right? My previous keynotes mentioned it already. There's a lot of innovation, a lot of analytics, there's a lot of data to share. AI is king, but we don't want to make AI look too sexy. Let's keep the AI for Dakar. Let's make it something that we can localize, right? AI does not mean rocket ships and robots. Sometimes AI is the fact that your water corporation can tell you that your water is going down. Sometimes AI is as simple as when I come out of the airport, my boarding pass should be able to tell the driver to move closer, right? It's simple things. It's intelligence. We are all intelligent. We just became more dependent on making it faster and quicker. Be careful, because the day you talk to your car and it talks back to you, you say move, it says, no, sir, I'm not going anywhere. We have a problem, okay? Let's think about the unintended consequences here. The smart cities. Why is it important to us to have smart cities? Because we're all getting better at this. Orange has infrastructure in many, many countries. You have so many data points. The cities are smarter because our traffic lights could work better. The cities are smarter because our infrastructure could be built better. E-government could be done better. Voting could be done better. There's so many things around our current infrastructure that could just be improved because we invested in the young people that could build it. And we also allowed for the policy environment for it to nurture itself. Smarter infrastructure. I just talked about Nigeria. The deal we did in Nigeria, which was announced yesterday all over the world, was a solar technology deal. But what was layered on top of it was all of the remote technologies that made it even smarter. And that's why we got the likes of Bill Gates as investors. Citizen-driven initiatives. What can we do to ensure that the citizen becomes the end node? If that citizen could come back to Orange and offer you specifics on the data that they need, and we can now allow people to build towards that data, we would be collectively more successful. And you're doing it already. Kudos to everybody in this room. These are Orange projects. They're not our projects. It's already happening within the organization. The organization has taken a leadership role to do this. We are here to say we can help do it better. We can help improve it. We can help move the progress a little faster. And we can help bring in a thought process outside of the organization to help the organization. We want to help you with mentorship. We need to be able to bring in folks that would support all of your entrepreneurs and all of your business units in your local markets. We want to have more collaboration, more market insights. We want to train some of the investors in your local ecosystems because these investors sometimes don't know the difference between a startup, a Ponzi scheme, and a real estate investment, right? And we want to make sure that startups are not looked at as Ponzi schemes and startups are not traded like they were real estate investments, right? We want to support go-to-market for a lot of your institutional players. How can we help? We can do quite a bit with Orange. Orange has been friends of ours in Silicon Valley in the last 5 years. We've supported Orange Fab and supported many of your African startups that got into Silicon Valley, and we will continue to do that for a very long time. I started by appreciating the fact that, with Musa and Rukaya and a few other folks who are leadership of the local market here, we've been able to see a group like this come together. But my biggest point of pride for connecting with you all today is maybe now I don't have to misunderstand something going on in Ouagadougou. Maybe now I don't have to misunderstand something going on in Sierra Leone. We can do it here because Orange has brought all of you together here. We want to help to standardize activities across the continent. It's very, very important that we do that. Because when you hear about Silicon Valley, when you hear about Y Combinator, when you hear about 500 startups, when you hear about Stanford and all these VC companies, what has happened over time is things have come together to take a certain type of standard. There's a standard for what is a pre-seed investment. There's a standard for what is a term sheet. There's a standard for what is Series A. There's a standard for what is an exit. There's a standard for corporate acquisition. There's a standard for dilution, right? We don't just come in and young startups are not able to even discuss with an investor because both parties, we're a Silicon Valley-based organization. We've been doing this for over a decade. We run the largest startup program in Africa called Demo Africa. And then for our innovation programs in Silicon Valley, we make sure that we bring the best of African startups to Silicon Valley, get them funded, get them accelerated, help them think about the Africa next that they want. But we do it starting here at home. We come across all of these ecosystems and find the diamonds in the rough. We partner with folks like Gebeya to ensure that these activities are very, very localized. And we do it through these four methods. It's connectivity, it's capacity, it's credibility, and it's capital. Lions Africa was started by the US State Department because there was a need to combine African investments with US venture investments. So that brings a bit of credibility. Why is it credible? Because for each one of your countries, based on this program, if I came into a country and I needed to convene around certain types of capital, I can speak to a certain class of people, I can speak to the leadership of certain organizations, and I can do so credibly because we're not a fly-by-night activity. Connectivity is physical and it's social. The social part of it is what we're doing now. The physical part of it is what Orange can do with infrastructure and also to the digital side. When you talk about mentorship, mentorship doesn't have to exist on a one-on-one. Mentorship can exist through networks. Mentorship can exist through platforms. There's a lot we can do there. And finally, for capital, everybody here knows that there was a cost to getting here. But if I was a startup and I thought today was the day that I would start on this stage and pitch to Orange across Africa, then I need to know that that source of capital is there. Dakar just started out an angel network. It's a fantastic opportunity for some of you who are based in this network to start to source out some of these digital transformation companies of the future. But let's give them enough of social, intellectual, and financial capital to support them through some of these decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. I flew in about, I don't know, what time did I get in, Musa? About midnight last night. But even through all the noise we were going through based on our investment announcements in Lagos, I was very, very committed to be here because I, for one, recognize the power of what Orange is doing across Africa. And in closing, I want to mention what I have not done well. What we have not been able to do well is we have failed in properly integrating Francophone Africa into many of our successful programs. We have not done that well. We have failed in properly ensuring that Francophone Africa has its place in the process of what we're doing. We have not done that well. So I come to you today in apology and responsibility, right? The apology part being, I've told you what I've not done well. The responsibility part being, I want to work with you. And I think that it's important that we work together because if I'm going to fix what I've broken, I need the partnership to do it, right? So let us kind of meet halfway between this apology and responsibility in a way where if Francophone Africa is going to have its place, if we're going to have the next line of investment activity in Africa, which is going to cross $1 billion next year, and we're not just going to have Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa on top of the list, and the next Francophone Africa is like number 32, right? We need to make sure that folks like us get in the room with folks like you and bridge those gaps. I apologize finally for my French. If I had to do all of this talk in French, your ears would hurt, your minds will be pained because I would totally assassinate the language. So I thank you for bearing this through my English. And then finally, in the interest of fashion and technology, based on the feedback I've gotten from a few of you on my outfits, I'm starting a new startup. It's called Wakanda Fashions. We're taking angel investors today. I am in room 617. Only bring cash, right? Because I need to change the money at the airport and go, right? Only bring cash. If you have Orange Bitcoin, I'll take it, right? But I want us to all realize that this collective effort is dying emails, and we're the people in this room, then definitely we're all African futurists, and I'm glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Stefan, I'm going to keep you on the stage because your speech inspired a lot all of us. Thank you very much. Oui, tu as une question? Vas-y, s'il te plaît.
Okay, merci. Thank you. I will broke English a little bit. So I thank you a lot for the pitch, and I share. I mean, in my heart, I shared everything you said about Africa, and it's very nice. But my mind don't want to. And I want to share you something that some people share with me, and I want to have your advice on it because I discussed one time with a Senegalese boy, which is in a coding school. And he asked me something I think very interesting. He said that he don't believe really that we will, we will do something very nice with digital. And I was really disappointed. He explained me that when he see our history, he see that we have all resources and we do nothing with that. And he said that we are investing on resources, which is coding for the digital. And he is not sure that we will do something on that. So I want just to have your advice about that and ask, what will be your answer to this boy? And what will be your answer to the boy that will say that I don't want to create a startup when I know that if we have the connectivity, Uber will come and easily Uberize us. Did they have some slot to do something that Google Maps will not change? Because just the example, the guy who say that create, and he spent a lot of money creating something for the traffic. And when he see Google Maps coming little by little with an AI, he say, I'm dead before burning. So what will be your answer on that?
Fantastic, thank you for that. To that young man, the first thing I want to do is connect with you today and get his information, okay? He sounds like a mentor. Second thing is, I will make sure that I fuel his aspiration, right? When you talk about coding versus entrepreneurship, I mentioned Gebeya more than 4 times because 7, 8 years ago when I met Amadou is exactly what I told him. I said, coding is one thing, entrepreneurship is another. People must be able to turn that code into product, turn that product to business, scale that business, and get invested in that business and exit the business, and then do it again, right? The young man you're talking about, even though I don't know him personally, I'm already attracted to him because he had the knowledge, passion, and inspiration to even talk to someone like you and not just be frustrated about life and not do anything about it. So the first thing is I want to meet him. Immediately I meet him, I may not give him money. And if I found out his economic situation, based on what you're telling me now, the digital skills that he needs, I'm willing to pay for internet for him for 1 year, just for him to be able to sit down and gather those digital skills I talked about for free, right? Because for a person like him, if the knowledge is the asset, based on his true African entrepreneurship spirit, right? Give him the knowledge first. Let him have that knowledge so that he can now be able to articulate what he's going to do next. So after giving him that internet and allowing him shape what he wants, then maybe I'll invest in him as an angel investor to say, okay, let's go and build something that's a product. But here's where I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him that his digital will get him nowhere. I don't. It's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege, ladies and gentlemen, to live and work in Silicon Valley. But from an America standpoint, I would like for you to visit Alabama. I would like for you to visit Maine. I would like for you to visit Arkansas. Dakar is better than those places, right? Far better. And what you find is it's the same America. It's the same land of opportunity, right? With Google, I did a project which we mobilized the entire city of Barcelona as part of the Mobile World Congress when I worked for the government of Catalonia, right? And we called it Barcelona Go Mobile. We were able to digitally transform the city of Barcelona. But for us to run that pilot project, we needed to test it in the most remote parts of America. And we went to a place called Mobile and go straight back home. No doubt about it. I will go straight back home. I mean, folks still have the toilet outside of the house. Like you have to walk to get to the toilet because there's no plumbing. It's America. I don't say this to promote inefficiency. I say this to celebrate the African ingenuity. That young man, in spite of everything going on around him, still feels the need to talk to someone like you and feel the need to be inspired to do it. I want to know him. I want to see how I can work with him.
Oh, Stefan. Now we're gonna continue with the first round table of this session. So these following people are pleased to join me on the stage. Madam Ramatoulaye Shagaya, Mr. Amadou Daffé, Madame Nathalie Munya. Si Madame Leïssa Moine est dans la salle, oui. Oui. C'est une table ronde qui sera animée, modérée par Monsieur Gilles Babinet. Encore une fois, on a des casques disponibles pour la traduction. Si vous souhaitez en disposer, il faut juste vous manifester. Monsieur Gilles Babinet, il est où? Ah, ouais, d'accord.
Five of us, but maybe we can get closer, or you want to sit? Yeah, please, Charles. Great, wonderful. Hello everyone, thank you for joining. We're going to do this in English because I believe most of you are English speakers, while I'm not sure about the French. You mentioned it earlier. I hope it's good for everyone. You can take headsets over there if you want to get the translation. The first thing maybe we could do is really have a quick introduction of each of you, like tweetboard a few words, if that's okay for you, starting with you over there. If that's okay, you need a mic probably. Do we have another mic? Okay, thank you.
All right, my name is Amadou Daffy, CEO of Gabea. We're a talent infrastructure company. I think that will resonate with Steve was saying. We're trying to build the best talent we can in Africa. We're happy to be finally coming to Senegal. Our company is based out of Ethiopia, Kenya in the US, so we're excited.
Okay, my name is Nathalie Munya. I'm Rwandan, so I wanted to mention that I got lectured yesterday for not knowing Wolof. So I want to just highlight that I'm not Senegalese. I am the managing director of an organization called the Next Science Forum, and I'm presenting after this, so I want to keep a little bit of spice for that presentation. I'm also currently the global lead for communications for the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, which is a branch here in Bor. in 6 other countries, and we're opening 2 other countries next year. So I can talk more about that, but we basically provide the technical talent for the fourth industrial revolution. So we can talk about that some more.
Hello, everybody. I'm Steven. I was a lot of things before now, but now I'm the president of Wakanda African Fashions for Digital Transformation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ramajalo Shagaya. I wear 2 hats. One is running the mobile money business for Sonatel, which is a cluster within the Orange Group here in Senegal. But I also play a coordination role across our 5 countries, which are Senegal, Mali, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, and Sierra Leone.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Lai Samuel. I'm the CEO of Kinaya Ventures. That is an open innovation and investment platform connecting the dots between startups and large corporate investors. And we are based here in Dakar and Abidjan.
Great, thank you very much. So, before getting into the agile thing and so on, maybe I'd like to address a key question is, do you think that there is something which is specific into large African corporation versus Western companies? Anyone like to address that?
A difference? Sorry.
Yeah, a difference. Do you think that African corporation, have something which is different from any other type of corporation in general, or is it very similar? It's also a question to me because I know well what are large European corporations, probably less well. How are these African companies?
To my friends and executives in Orange, I think the first thing I want to compliment you on is your collectiveness. But then I think as a large corporation, what is the company's appetite to risk, right? At a corporation like Google, 20% of the time, employees have this thing called the 20% time to think about a new problem they want to solve inside of their paid hours. And then they take that problem and then they put it forth to the venture team, and then they see if it's fundable inside of Google. Does the African corporation have an appetite for that type of risk? Does the African corporation promote that type of risk-taking and venture creation activity as intrapreneurship? And then finally, if it's observed that an Orange employee created a startup, will Orange support him or fire him, right? These are some of the things that technically impede innovation within corporations when there may not be a culture, a policy, or a practice around making sure that that corporation can think outside its own box and solve its problems. But does that mean that the corporation should be reckless? No, because in highly regulated environments, in environments where policy is actually the backbone of the business, then corporations themselves have to be very careful not to allow employees just be reckless around intellectual property and around all kinds of innovation. And I'll give you an example. There is a current lawsuit between Uber and Waymo. And the reason is because for the concept of driverless cars, which is a key aspect of digital transformation, driverless cars in Silicon Valley, forget about what Uber is doing now. If you look at their IPO filing, Uber is actually in the business of driverless cars. That's the future. That's what they're going for. But there was an engineer in one of the companies who got hired into the other company. And when he was hired in there, he took all of the IP, he deleted all his files, and he left. Yes. And now there's a big lawsuit. So when you think about the company that he left, and I can't speak to it because, but if you think about the company that he left, the first question is, what did they do for knowledge management? What did they do for information security? What were the ways that they were actually making this employee feel empowered? Why didn't they keep him? What was it about retention, right? So you have to look all the way down the food chain and say, how did this happen? And then for the company that accepted him, how did it happen that Did they do the diligence? Did they find out what was required? And what did they lack so much that they could not do in-house that they needed to actually import someone and import it, whether it was legally or illegally? As corporations start to fight this race towards fourth industrial revolution in Africa, this is going to happen because Gebeyas cannot build enough so fast. And you might see people jumping from one place to the other.
I would add that I think there's several differences. The first is that most corporations in Africa I want to use the word very lightly, but they are not in the business of innovation. And so they're working in an existing, if I'm a very famous Nigerian cement company, I am in the business of cement. And then if I end up diversifying, I buy some oil, so my core business is not innovation. And those who have survived long enough have learned to diversify enough that if you take a hit here, you can, reinvest here. But that's, I think, a core issue. Our large corporations are not in the business of innovation, but I think that I can also be challenged on that. Second, in Africa, regulation is oftentimes slow. There is tax issues. There's so many, I would say, core issues with doing business in Africa, and that's not everywhere, obviously, as you said yourself, that innovation becomes something you do because maybe you have a very, very good leader, but it's not natural because you're dealing with surviving as an organization. And finally, I think if you think about, he talked a lot about Silicon Valley, but if you think about where Silicon Valley came from, it is we lack the tech transfer. So we are not recruiting, we don't have active recruitment in universities. We don't build the talent we want. We kind of complain that our universities are not building the talent we want, or we rely on outside parties to create our talent. But in-house, we're not very good at creating the type of pipeline we're looking for, which is very different in Europe. It's known, for example, that in the US, the Boston area, people are lined up at the University of Chicago because they have created a very strong tech transfer offices and systems. So I think those, for me, are the primary differences.
Yes, so I'll add a couple of things. The first one is having worked for corporate America and now running a startup in Africa, I think that one of the fundamental differences, a corporation in Africa have a tendency of building the ecosystem in which they need to survive in. Stephen was mentioning about infrastructure. So in the US, if you typical corporation, most of the groundwork has been laid out, right? Anything from network, logistics for transportations and all that stuff. So if you look at a company in Africa, and I use Dangote cement, he always says, if the ecosystem doesn't exist, I have to create it. So when he first started producing mass cement, he ran into the problem of not having enough trucks into the country. So what he did was he created his own trucking company, which served his needs and the rest of the country. So I think the fundamental thing there is African corporation have to build the ecosystem. So they have a sort of double work to do to make it happen.
That's quite interesting because, I mean, it's quite situation, but it's going from the big B to the small C in some ways. And I believe it could be an asset as well.
Yeah, so the advantage is, for example, I'm going to use Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is totally blocked out right now in terms of internet. Internet is gone. People ask me, how did you survive the past 3 years? We survived a recession, state of emergency. So you have to kind of pivot. So business model allows to say, you know what, forget the internet. We're going to do a lot of things physical. So it's more of figure out how do you survive into your ecosystem, sort of like build barriers to entry for some competition. So it's a very interesting model in Africa. The stronger would survive in Africa in terms of corporation. That's what it is. And one company that's done it very well is Coca-Cola. If you can go to a far-fetched village in Futatoro, you ask the little kid, what is this? They'll tell you it's Coca-Cola. All right? So studying those models and figure out how to build companies like that in Africa would be quite interesting.
Back to your question, what I'd add is the dimension of time. You know, when your question was set up as what's the difference between African companies and, say, American companies, and that's geography. But I think the world we live in today has made it so that perhaps the difference comes from when was the corporation born? Because some of the things they've talked about, I think, have a lot to do, especially on the African continent, have a lot to do with survival and learning to survive. And if they're here, Orange included, if they're here today, it's because they've managed to survive a lot of different things. Because what all our countries have in common is that it's never boring, whether it's a recession or floods, or there's always something, whether it's nature or man-made, that will challenge you to the core. So the difference is now the way corporations are being born is so different. I think because of the digital nature of our being, it's a little bit the same with the way our children are being born. The generations that I think you mentioned earlier, they just have a way of interacting with the world that's very different from the way you interact with the world if you were born in the 60s or the 70s. So I think that is what is now creating a difference between, it's not so much geography in the traditional sense, but perhaps digital geography is what is determining their differences. Now, some of the behemoths, I actually realized, I think Musa set me up a little bit because the large group here, I think I'm supposed to represent on this panel. So the big companies, the behemoths, now, and Orange is definitely, I think, doing a great job of this, but it's a continuous job, is to ask yourself, well, how are we going to survive? How are we going to innovate? How are we going to not be like the startups, but how are we going to morph into our next evolutionary self if we're going to survive? So I think that's at least how I would think about the differences today, not so much in traditional geographic terms.
So just think, I'd like to come back to your point. Is it anyway different to what does Western companies? I mean, they have to ask the same questions, whether they should survive tomorrow and so on. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's why I'm saying perhaps the Western versus African dichotomy is even less relevant. It's more about what's your digital geography, whether your physical geography is the U.S. or France or Rwanda.
okay.
I think that in comparison to the West, sometimes it's sector specific, sometimes it's stage specific. But what you find is, for some companies, if they cannot innovate internally, they just have to acquire. An acquisition is a capital dependency. If you don't have the capital, you can't acquire. And if you can't acquire and you can't innovate internally, you fall behind the gap, right? You look at Microsoft right now, a lot of this progress that Satya has made in Microsoft, that has worked for Microsoft's employees and Microsoft's shareholders, because the stock has been doing excellent, the employees are happy, innovation is happening, Microsoft is a better place to work right now, right? You look at the likes of Facebook. You know, Facebook 10 years ago wanted to acquire a certain company called Instagram because they needed to kill the competition. And they didn't do it 10 years ago because the founders of Instagram felt they weren't going to sell. Well, fast forward at the time where Facebook will not only acquire you, but they'll slap you in the face with their money. Instagram is now a Facebook company. WhatsApp is now a Facebook company, right? Facebook is just launching Libra, right? You look at that particular strategy and you find that that is an acquisition-driven strategy, because the outreach that WhatsApp had already existed before Facebook came in. Facebook extended it a little bit, but now just built a payment infrastructure with blockchain on top of it. Yeah.
Wanted to say a word?
The main difference, I think, between Western and African companies, large corporations, it's their positioning towards innovation. Because I'm a former banker and I see before the digital transformation, African companies tend to be like Western companies. And the digital transformation has infused something quite different. And we see a large divide between traditional large corporations in Africa and now. And all the companies that are digital driven, like for example Orange in Africa. And there's also a question that we can also ask to ourselves. It's what do we consider as an African company? Is Orange is an African company, considered as an African company? There was lots of noise about that when Munya launched their IPO. What is an African company? And I believe that also the position of African company towards innovation is quite different today from what Western companies are doing with innovation. So we are still in Africa struggling internally how we can leverage on innovation to bridge the gap. If you consider, for example, Asian companies are very, very aggressive towards innovation. So it's not the same thing in Africa. And I think that when you see companies in Africa driven by innovation, it's more affiliates from Western companies than African indigenous, let's say, companies.
It's difficult to sum up what's been said by all of you, because I'd say that what we hear is that it's more vertically integrated, but in some way it's very tied to regulation and not necessarily innovation. Yeah, it's unclear whether there is African, so to say, management style, but you tend to say that it's probably less innovative, which to me is a little bit bizarre. And I'd like to have your view on that, because there is no other continent where you have more entrepreneurs than Africa. So is it that we don't see this culture, or is it that we too much give like Western corporate cultures that kills the entrepreneurship? I would say the very vibrant spirit of African entrepreneurship. So I'd like to have your views on that, please.
I actually disagree. I think Africa naturally innovates. But I think what my point was is that innovation as a process or innovation as an ecosystem is something that we need to discuss further and move away from buzzwords and the trees that are hiding the forest. This is what my point was that with that was what I think today is if I can vous allez me permettre de le faire en français parce que je pense que tout le monde parle français sauf Steven, so maybe we get him headphones, but je pense que je le disais, je te l'ai dit tantôt que moi je suis à la fois anglophone et francophone, et je pense qu'il y a aussi, si vous me permettez de dire qu'il y a une histoire de culture qu'il y a là en Afrique. Alors on se demande tout le temps pourquoi le côté anglophone innove. Moi je me suis croisée avec Moussa au Rwanda, et puis il y a une différence de speed, il y a une différence il y a de l'aplanissement du leadership. Alors, c'est une histoire de culture. Aujourd'hui, par exemple, c'est très rare de voir dans une boîte francophone qu'un product manager, product director va s'asseoir avec le DG. Il y a tellement d'hierarchie entre les gens qui créent les produits, qui sont derrière les machines, qui créent les algorithmes, et le leadership. Dans le côté anglophone, et ça, je veux dire aussi, c'est venu par nécessité, il y a cette histoire de dire, mais c'est lui qui connaît ce qui se passe, je dois l'entendre, et le VP, le CEO va prendre des cours pour pouvoir comprendre ce qu'on lui dit. Il va prendre des cours de AI pour les CEO, Executive AI Courses, pour dire, moi, je veux comprendre ce qu'on me dit pour pouvoir prendre des meilleures décisions. Je ne veux pas dire que je vais généraliser ça, vous allez m'excuser, mais je crois qu'il y a une histoire de culture, de cette incapacité de dire, je peux apprendre, je peux absorber. Et aujourd'hui, je pense que le leadership de demain, le future of work, demande qu'on change cette mentalité-là pour survivre. Et je crois que l'innovation ne commence pas seulement dans la transformation de nos produits, de nos systèmes, Mais ça commence aussi dans la transformation du leadership. Parce que si aujourd'hui on est incapable de recevoir du feedback de nos ingénieurs, de nos CDOs, alors on ne va pas survivre dans cet environnement-là. Et je crois qu'on a ce challenge dans le monde francophone et aussi dans le monde africain en général. Et nous, on a la chance au Rwanda que tout le monde est jeune. Alors tu es jamais surpris d'entrer et de trouver que tout le monde a 25 ans ou 30 ans à la table, mais quand je viens en Afrique francophone, j'attends qu'on me présente, parce que sinon on va dire, ah, la petite fille là-bas qui est venue nous dire des choses. Alors je dois toujours attendre qu'on donne mon titre, et puis on me dit, ah, et en plus elle a travaillé avec le président, et en plus elle a fait ceci, pour pouvoir que je ouvre ma bouche et je dise quelque chose. Le monde anglophone, jamais le cas. Ouais. Et ça, c'est un problème de base. Hein. Et je crois qu'aujourd'hui, j'étais la semaine passée avec Aminata dans le CEO Forum des femmes, et je leur disais aujourd'hui, c'est une faiblesse qu'on a de ne pas comprendre le monde où on est dans le digital. C'est pas assez de seulement envoyer une équipe, avoir une équipe de côté. Il faut, en tant que leader, comprendre ce processus, et si ça demande, aller prendre des cours. Nous tous, on prend des cours moi je ne suis pas scientifique de background, mais je dirige une institution scientifique, et je prends des cours pour pouvoir comprendre ce qu'on me dit, après ça, et pouvoir traduire ça dans un langage, dans les politiques publiques, etc. Je crois que c'est un problème de culture et d'innovation au niveau du leadership. Mais aussi, à la base, il faut aujourd'hui dire que les compagnies qui existent aujourd'hui n'existeront pas, ou on va devoir changer de modèle complètement. Ça veut dire, si tu penses à l'industrialisation des années 80-90, on n'est plus là. Ça a carrément complètement changé. Est-ce qu'on est prêt pour complètement changer? Et je crois que c'est ça le crux.
Passionnant. Je voudrais vous poser une question. Est-ce que vous pensez que le gap, c'est plus de tourner l'Afrique de l'Ouest vers l'Est ou vers le Nord?
Moi, je ne pense pas au Nord souvent, parce que moi, je crois qu'il faut... Aujourd'hui, l'Afrique doit faire ce qu'il faut pour pouvoir avoir un écosystème africain. Et ça, je pense, l'infrastructure, je veux en parler dans ma présentation, le côté regulation, policies, le côté talent. On doit arrêter de se dire le modèle Silicon Valley. I'll leave that to Steven. Moi, je ne suis pas venu vendre ce modèle-là parce qu'il ne peut pas travailler en Afrique. Je crois que ce qu'il dit, ce qui est vrai, c'est d'appliquer, de voir dans notre écosystème qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour avoir les bases qu'il faut, comme l'infrastructure digitale. Aujourd'hui, on ne peut pas leapfrog la cybersécurité. La semaine passée, j'étais dans un forum et on m'a dit, on parlait de leapfrogging cybersecurity, et j'ai une crise cardiaque. Et je me suis levée et crié à haute voix et dire on ne peut pas faire du leapfrog de la cybersécurité. Alors je crois qu'aujourd'hui, on doit s'informer sur les bases qu'il faut, on doit s'informer sur les talents qu'il faut. Et puis après ça, je pense qu'à la fin de ça, on va pouvoir maintenant avoir un modèle africain. Hein. Et le modèle africain s'applique peut-être différemment au Sénégal que ça s'applique à Lagos, mais il y aura un modèle, comme il a dit, a standardization of processes within an innovation ecosystem. Ça, c'est très important. Et je crois qu'aujourd'hui, le monde, c'est pour ça que j'ai changé en français, on nous accuse souvent, nous tous on parle français, mais on va aller sur un panel au Sénégal et parler anglais. Alors on doit faire mieux. Mais c'est parce que les francophones sont timides. Il a fait une présentation, il m'a dit venez me toucher, et qui est venu? L'anglophone est venu le toucher. C'est qu'on doit sortir de c'est un monde compétitif, il faut sortir de son shell et dire écoute, on est là, on a du talent, on a des idées, je dois dire quelque chose, mais si on attend que on te dise est-ce que tu veux parler français, ça ne va jamais se passer. Et je crois que ce monde-là, le francophone doit être un peu déstabilisé. Et pourtant, le côté francophone a des talents. Moi, je travaille dans le système scientifique et je peux vous dire qu'il y a une base, même ici au Sénégal, qui est untapped. Et moi, j'attends qu'il y ait plus de mouvements de personnes pour que les Sénégalais quittent le Sénégal. Et là, maintenant, vous allez comprendre après qu'il faut avoir des Sénégalais dans le système.
Je vous laisse juste la parole une seconde, parce que c'est passionnant ce que vous dites. J'ai une question à vous poser. Quand même, le Rwanda s'est beaucoup appuyé sur les États-Unis pour décoller, entre guillemets. Vous êtes d'accord avec ça?
Non. Non, je crois que c'est super médiatisé. Le Rwanda s'est appuyé sur le Rwanda pour avancer, parce qu'on a reçu, si tu parles en termes de aid money, on a reçu from the Netherlands, from beaucoup de pays. Mais ce qui s'est passé, c'est que le leadership a décidé, nous, à partir de 97, hein, je vais vous expliquer, en 97, on avait toujours des guerres, des milices qui tuaient des gens au nord, hein, après le génocide. Et en 97, il fallait que ce soit notre président. Et il a dit, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Il a donné la tâche au ministre de ICT. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour que dans 20 ans, en 2020, on soit X, Y, Z? Et le ministre l'a dit, mais tu es fou. Et il l'a fait, il a poussé, et les gens finalement ont commencé à le faire. Et aujourd'hui, we benefit from the results of that vision and execution. C'est pas seulement la vision, il y a aussi l'exécution de la vision et de amener des gens avec vous qui croient dans cette vision. Et aujourd'hui, ce qu'il faut. Et je vais finir par dire que le président Kagame est très. Il est un peu rebelle. Hein. Je crois que parce qu'il a vécu longtemps dans le, in that. Si vous le dites, s'il vient et vous dit, what do we need to do for quantum technology, tu lui dis, on n'a même pas encore maîtrisé le digital, ne nous parle pas du quantum, il va vous dire, fix me, find me a strategy for quantum. Et il force la chose jusqu'à ce que finalement, ça devient possible. Et je crois que le monde francophone, ça parle beaucoup et ça articule beaucoup des principes de démocratie, mais on ne force pas quand il faut. Et je peux m'arrêter là.
Ok, incroyable. Très. Je vous en prie.
Merci Nathalie. Je pense que le sujet d'être francophone ou d'anglophone, je trouve que dans le monde anglophone, un des problèmes qu'on a, il faut l'admettre, c'est l'anglais quand même qui prédomine, que ce soit dans le monde des startups ou dans le monde du venture capital. Et je pense que le Rwanda a bénéficié de votre choix d'aller plutôt vers l'anglais. Et c'est excellent parce que ça, en fait, la langue, c'est quoi? C'est ce qui permet d'avoir ces passerelles vers les autres. Et de plus en plus, je pense qu'il est impératif qu'on fasse plus d'efforts dans le monde francophone pour parler anglais. Si l'on parlait plus français, j'aurais dit que c'est peut-être aux anglophones de faire cet effort-là. Et nous tous, peut-être qu'on devrait faire l'effort de parler plutôt chinois pour préparer l'avenir. Mais bon, on n'y est pas encore, mais en même temps, je pense que c'est vraiment très, très important dans le monde francophone. Pourquoi? Parce qu'à Orange, que ce soit dans le mobile money ou de manière générale, en tout cas, moi, je le vois, il y a beaucoup que ce soit des startups ou des partenaires potentiels qui aimeraient bien pouvoir travailler avec nous, mais il y a quand même cette barrière de la langue, c'est très, très simple. Et il y a cette barrière de la langue même entre nous, parce que on l'oublie, mais on a des collègues qui sont là, qui sont anglophones. Et dans le day-to-day, je n'imagine même pas comment ils arrivent à survivre dans l'univers d'Orange, où on est bien sûr très, très francophone. Donc je pense que, enfin, c'est très bien de nous encourager à parler français parce qu'on est au Sénégal, mais si on pense au futur, si on pense à ce qu'il nous faut, et à nos enfants même, je pense que c'est vraiment très, très important de travailler sur cet aspect d'être à minima bilingue. Parce que je me dis peut-être que bilingue c'est bien aujourd'hui, mais pour nos enfants, dans 20 ans, il faudra peut-être être trilingue. On ne sait pas, mais en tout cas, pour préparer l'avenir, il faut être ouvert, je pense, à d'autres besoins et à d'autres possibilités de ce point de vue-là. Et donc, en termes de comment, en tout cas, encourager cette innovation, ça commence par le partage d'informations. Et pour partager de l'information, il faut littéralement parler la même langue pour se comprendre littéralement et se comprendre culturellement. Je pense que ça, c'est aussi c'est critique. Au-delà de ce qu'on se dit, c'est ce qu'on comprend aussi qui est plus important.
Mais ça veut dire que les écosystèmes d'innovation doivent tous parler anglais, vous pensez?
Ils doivent se parler.
Ils doivent se parler.
Ils doivent se parler, ils doivent se comprendre. Je pense que c'est impératif et c'est urgent pour l'Afrique. Et que ça se fasse en Wolof, en français, en Swahili, trouvons le moyen de le faire. Je pense qu'il est urgent qu'on se parle et qu'on se comprenne. Maintenant, quelle que soit la langue, je pense que trouvons le dénominateur commun où qu'on soit. Mais il est plus impératif qu'on communique, en tout cas.
Alors, on a parlé de beaucoup de choses, hein, très vite, là, en un quart d'heure de 20 minutes de panel. On a parlé d'enjeux de business model, d'intégration verticale. On a parlé de soft skills, de hard skills, également sur ce genre de choses. Le sujet, c'est quand même d'essayer de dire comment est-ce qu'on peut se servir de la culture digitale, des modes agiles, etc., pour transformer et accélérer les corporations africaines. J'ai un peu le sentiment qu'on retrouve des problèmes qu'on a un peu partout d'ailleurs, aussi bien aux États-Unis qu'en Europe, qui est une espèce de culture corporate qui est très totalitaire, très très difficile à pénétrer dans les environnements traditionnels. Pour autant, j'ai quand même un peu le sentiment que c'est peut-être un peu plus facile dans les entreprises africaines, notamment parce que les cadres sont beaucoup plus jeunes que dans les entreprises qu'on trouve à l'Ouest. Est-ce que vous partagez ce point de vue?
Non, je pense que les cadres plus jeunes, je pense que c'est vrai au Rwanda, ça dépend du pays. Ce n'est pas forcément le cas. Je n'imagine pas que ce soit généralisable à tous les pays africains. C'est pas, je pense que ce qui est important, et c'est normal en fait, quand je reviens à la première partie de votre question, quand vous parlez d'un sens de déjà-vu entre les corporates africains et d'autres pays. Mais je pense que c'est normal parce que dans la vie et dans le développement d'un corporate, ce qui se passe un peu pour faire une image, c'est que ça grossit, et puis après, pour mieux gérer, il y a une pyramide qui commence à se former. Et donc, on a cette pyramide qui se forme et ça devient de plus en plus difficile pour les gens au milieu et pour les gens en haut de savoir ce qui se passe. Les gens au milieu sont protégés par ceux qui sont autour. Donc souvent, même dans nos corporates, on a ceux qui sont autour, qui sont donc en général plus proches de l'environnement ou du client, qui disent alerte, digitalisation, ou on est en train de perdre telle chose, on devrait penser à telle chose. Et ceux qui sont au milieu ne sont pas forcément, ne l'entendent pas forcément très très vite. Maintenant, pour ceux qui sont au top de cette pyramide, le challenge c'est dans le quotidien, on regarde souvent vers le bas, c'est-à-dire comment est-ce qu'on protège cette pyramide, comment est-ce qu'on s'assure que voilà, notre croissance de 2 à 3% là, on arrive à préserver. Mais le challenge du leader au top de cette pyramide, c'est de pouvoir, justement parce qu'on est au top de cette pyramide, de pouvoir voir plus loin. Mais pour voir plus loin, il faut lever la tête, il faut poser des questions, il faut apprendre, comme on le disait. Et je pense que c'est là le vrai challenge. Ce n'est pas une question d'âge, forcément, même si, bon, peut-être que ça aide d'être plus jeune, mais c'est vraiment savoir poser des questions et avoir envie de poser des questions. Et quelquefois, savoir même qu'on devrait poser des questions, même si on ne sait pas ce qu'on ne sait pas, et qu'on ne sait pas quelles questions poser. Mais rien que cette volonté d'ouverture, je pense que c'est ça qui est vraiment critique en ce moment pour nos grosses entités, que ce soit Orange, je pense que c'est même valide pour d'autres pays. Peut-être que mes co-panélistes pourront un peu en rajouter sur ça.
Quelqu'un veut répondre à ça? Stéphane?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think on my side, two things. There's a science and an art to entrepreneurship. The science of entrepreneurship and innovation is such that if Senegal universities filed more patents around ag tech, there's a greater possibility that investors in ag tech will come to Senegal and try to commercialize some of those patents. And that's why, again, why Silicon Valley is different from Ohio. But that being said, there is Jumia, for example. We had a conversation, is Jumia really African or not? All of that stuff. But most recently, there was an article that was put out by ex-Jumia employees to show how many ex-Jumia employees went out to create their own companies and how much they raise and how successful they are. So to her point, there's a youth tendency because in that regard, these are young people who were in Jumia, saw that there were things that were dysfunctional, went out and built their own. But in fintech, most of the CEOs of Nigerian banks are older. But the Nigerian banking system, from a training standpoint, from a development standpoint, I would rather hire someone out of a Nigerian bank because they've been well trained. But the growth you're seeing in fintech now is also because there are young people in the bank who have seen the gaps in the financial service. They don't want to be a CEO of a bank. They want to go start their own, right? The CEOs are still older, and they will probably remain older because of the politics of the nature of the industry. But the young people who are there, who are innovative, have seen the gaps, get there, get structured training, understand process, and then go out and start their own. I said the Jumia example, I shared that example. The third example is telco. When Huawei came into Nigeria and built out many of the telco infrastructure for the likes of MTN and Ericsson, they built out a lot of very strong telco engineers. Most of those engineers now are the technical CTOs of many of the startups because they understand infrastructure. They understand the bare bones. They understand network infrastructure. But they were part of a larger company, Huawei, which by that time was just a Chinese conglomerate in Nigeria that was getting engineers out of school, training them to go and develop cell sites. So again, I go back to the art. The African entrepreneur will artistically find his way inside of a chaotic system.
En français, c'est très intéressant parce qu'en fait, ce que vous dites, c'est que la meilleure façon de transformer un écosystème corporate traditionnel, c'est d'appuyer sur le champignon de l'innovation startup. En fait, ça revient à ça, et je suis assez d'accord avec ça. Mais je trouve ça très semblable à ce que j'observe dans les pays de l'Ouest, en fait. Moi, ce que je vois, c'est que c'est très difficile de changer les entreprises traditionnelles, presque impossible, et que c'est souvent en ayant un processus de in-out avec les startups qu'on y arrive. Acquisition de startups, des gens qui partent pour monter leur startup, qui vont faire des partenariats avec la corporation par la suite, qu'on arrive à faire ce genre de choses. Ça rejoint à peu près ce que vous dites. Mais je pense qu'à l'égard des FREC, c'est encore plus valable parce qu'il y a beaucoup plus la proportion d'entrepreneurs est plus importante. Et donc, il faut faciliter ces mouvements entre les corporates et les entrepreneurs. Quelqu'un veut réagir là-dessus? Vous voulez dire quelque chose?
Alors, si je peux me permettre de partager mon expérience, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec vous. Moi, je venais du monde corporate et il se trouve que de manière, par pure sérendipité, je me suis retrouvée en fait à interagir dans le monde corporate avec les startups et à développer un projet en mode intrapreneurial. Et j'ai vu donc du point de vue du corporate, comment il peut y avoir en fait ces résistances-là, parce que la conduite du changement au sein d'un corporate, une culture d'entreprise assez lourde, c'est que ça prend quand même du temps. Mais donc quand dans un corporate, il y a de plus en plus de gens en fait qui travaillent sur des projets en mode entrepreneurial, on commence à infuser en fait cette culture start-up, donc de développement en mode agile. Et les interactions qu'il y a aussi en fait avec des startups, donc cette fois-ci des startups externes, ça permet aux gens de se familiariser de plus en plus en fait avec l'univers des startups, l'innovation startup. Et moi, ça m'a tellement donc justement interpellée que j'ai décidé de devenir entrepreneur. Et je me suis lancée en fait dans cette aventure Kinaya, qui est en fait une aventure pour justement connecter en fait ces deux mondes-là qui parfois n'arrivent pas à se parler. Et là, donc aujourd'hui, maintenant on travaille avec Sonatel, mais aussi avec Nestlé, avec Elle, avec L'Oréal, justement en Afrique, pour donc créer le pont entre en fait start-up africaines prometteuses et grands groupes. Voilà.
Ouais, magnifique, très intéressant. Vous vouliez réagir?
Bon, là, je vais parler français aussi. Sorry, Steve. Moi, je crois aussi qu'il faut un peu définir c'est quoi être entrepreneur, dans le sens où, en Afrique, la plupart des entrepreneurs, c'est par nécessité. C'est-à-dire qu'il n'y a pas de travail. Donc, le gars, il va créer un petit truc, ou bien il va vendre dans la rue, ou quelque chose comme ça. Et il y a d'autres entrepreneurs qui sont un peu plus, disons, transformatifs. Ils font des choses un peu plus, qui transforment un peu en plus grand impact. Donc il y a cet aspect-là. Donc maintenant, il ne faut pas juste dire que, voilà, l'Afrique, ils sont tous entrepreneurs. Je crois qu'il faut bien quand même caser un peu là où on trouve les gens. Parce que le jour où on aura des corporations qui peuvent employer des milliers et des milliers de jeunes, ceux qui étaient entrepreneurs, soi-disant, vont aller rejoindre ces compagnies. Donc c'est ce que je voulais dire en quelques mots.
Non, c'est évident que c'est un point. Mais alors, peut-être pour adresser un autre point, est-ce que vous voyez, plutôt que de parler d'entrepreneurs, on va dire de gens qui sont dans le monde très informel, une importance à peut-être pour ces entreprises essayer d'accroître leur exposition aux gens qui maîtrisent les diasporas qui sont à l'extérieur? Est-ce qu'elles le font déjà?
Bon, là, je crois qu'il faut vraiment penser disruption, c'est-à-dire qu'il faut vraiment changer. Moi, je ne crois pas que les corporations ou même les gouvernements africains ont assez de capacité de trouver du boulot ou bien, en fait, régler le problème de unemployment en Afrique. Je crois qu'il faut vraiment avoir des compagnies qui créent surtout des marchés, en fait, comme Uber, comme Airbnb, tu vois, qui peuvent très rapidement permettre à des millions de jeunes d'avoir du boulot en tant que consultant puis en tant que contracteur, que d'essayer de voir si un jour, par exemple, Orange peut absorber 50 000 personnes qui ont des boulots. Donc je crois qu'il faut plutôt voir les startups qui sont en train de disrupt un peu ce modèle de dire, OK, je peux créer un produit qui peut permettre à quelqu'un d'autre, digitalement, de se faire de l'argent. Par exemple, le problème que Uber, par exemple, a réglé, c'est deux choses. La première, bon, ceux qui n'avaient pas de boulot, par exemple, les minorités qui se trouvent aux États-Unis, tu vas à New York, par exemple, c'était très difficile en tant que noir d'avoir un taxi. Ouais. Maintenant, on ne parle plus de ça. Ouais, parce que d'abord, il y avait question de confiance, il y avait question de sécurité, il y avait question de, voilà, le gars, il me voit noir, il ne me prend pas. Ça n'existe plus. Parce que là, avec Uber, tu appuies un bouton, tu as un taxi qui vient chez toi, la transaction est faite en ligne et c'est parti. Le deuxième problème que ça a réglé, c'est le problème d'emploi. Les jeunes qui ne pouvaient pas trouver du boulot, Uber te permet, avec ton permis de conduire, une carte grise, de montrer très rapidement, on va en boulot. Donc moi, je crois que ces modèles qu'il faut qu'on les étudie, essayer de les amener en Afrique, puisqu'on ne peut pas créer des boulots aussi rapidement, c'est de voir comment faire. Même Airbnb, c'est un peu là pareil. Si on a un appartement qu'on n'utilise pas, voilà, on n'a pas de boulot, on peut avoir quelqu'un qui veut venir loger là-bas. Moi, c'est ces modèles que je plutôt regarde pour voir un peu comment transformer l'Afrique.
Mais moi, je suis, en tant qu'entrepreneur, je suis assez d'accord, mais c'est un modèle, si je pousse le raisonnement au bout, forget the big corporation and get rid of it and let's start up. C'est un peu ce que vous dites.
Non, c'est pas ce que je dis. Je dis que l'Afrique n'a plus le temps d'attendre que les corporations... En fait, le modèle western, top-down, c'est-à-dire que tu as une corporation that creates jobs, ça va disparaître. Ce n'est pas soutenable, puisque la population croît beaucoup plus rapidement que les corporations. Right? So maintenant, ce que tu dois faire, c'est dire comment je peux trouver des trucs. Même Orange peut peut-être créer cette opportunité. Si Orange avait créé son Uber au Sénégal, vous savez combien de personnes ils peuvent employer? Donc, ce n'est pas une corrélation, c'est plutôt voir quels sont les futurs marchés du travail pour ces jeunes qui peuvent être entrepreneurs ou bien consultants ou contracteurs. C'est un peu cette pensée.
Si tu me permets, je crois que je ne suis pas nécessairement d'accord, parce que je crois que si on va sur ce système, quand le jour que Uber africain va être disrupted, tu auras maintenant un autre problème de beaucoup plus de personnes unemployed. Moi, je crois qu'il faut qu'on travaille sur les deux niveaux. Il y a les disruptors qui viennent, mais aussi on doit travailler sur l'écosystème. Because à long terme, il faut qu'on pense aussi à des boulots qui... Bon, ça c'est une autre discussion, on n'a que 2 minutes. Mais j'allais dire, c'est que Stéphane a dit est très important, acquisition, absorption. Aujourd'hui, vous l'avez déjà, je crois, ici à Sonatel, où il y a le pôle digital qui travaille sur les questions des nouvelles idées. Mais nous, au boulot, on est un groupe de 6 initiatives. Et le mien, au Next Einstein Forum, c'est là où on commence des idées qui sont un peu fous, quoi. Que on peut jamais amener des idées. Toutes les idées qu'on travaille chez nous, on peut jamais amener ça au board. Parce que the first thing they will say, c'est des scientifiques vieux, ils vont te dire impossible. Cette histoire-là, ça fait pas de sens, je peux pas quantifier ça, it doesn't work with physics, c'est fini. Alors, on prend toutes les idées qui aujourd'hui sont devenues des grosses idées dans le groupe, on le commence au Next Einstein Forum, on travaille, Et c'est parce que notre PDG nous a donné un peu d'espace pour dire, on n'a même pas besoin de passer par lui, on essaie une idée, on essaie, et puis on le présente, on dit, by the way, on pense que ça, il nous donne ses idées, des fois on les ignore, on continue à innover, jusqu'à ce que we iterate until we get a version that we can show to our executives at the group level. So je crois qu'aujourd'hui, pour les corporates, si on parle des corporates, je pense qu'il faut un système, comme vous l'avez montré dans votre présentation, où vous avez un pôle qui est un peu retiré, qui a le droit ou les ressources ou le talent et un peu le laisser de côté pour qu'ils innovent sur des choses. C'est de l'intrapreneurship. Et on va décider, est-ce que c'est quelque chose qui peut être absorbé à Orange ou on doit it becomes a spin-off. You know, est-ce qu'on regarde dans le marché, can we acquire that and improve that startup? Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, c'est ça si on n'arrive pas à changer tout le corporate, il faut créer des pôles, mais des pôles avec the support of the leadership. Ça veut dire un manager ne va pas débarquer et dire, mais écoute, moi, vous faites quoi ici, je ne vois pas le point. Mais vraiment que tout le monde comprenne que là-bas, c'est là où on met des idées un peu fous, ou un peu de iteration, iterate, et puis on lance cette idée. Does it become a spin-off because on peut pas l'absorber dans le groupe aujourd'hui. Je crois que c'est ça qui est très important.
Time's almost up. J'ai une dernière question pour vous, et je crois qui intéressera beaucoup de gens ici, mais est-ce que vous pensez que les Orange, les plateformes télécoms peuvent être une force de transformation pour les corporates? Parce que finalement, c'est des plateformes, il y a une grosse expérience de la data, il y a aussi une expérience d'agilité chez vous. Est-ce que vous avez ce rôle ou pas du tout? Est-ce que votre boulot, c'est pas ça?
Nous, on n'est pas une telco, mais je peux dire qu'en Afrique, je dirais que les telcos sont beaucoup plus agiles qu'ailleurs. Moi, j'ai vécu au Canada 17 ans, je vais vous dire que it's like night and day. Pour eux, changement, ça fait, you become bankrupt and then you change yourself. Look at BlackBerry. You know, you have to become threatened with bankruptcy before you say, okay, how do I change my model? Mais je crois qu'aujourd'hui, en Afrique, les telcos, they lead the innovation systems. C'est à cause de eux qu'on change de regulation parce qu'ils amènent beaucoup d'argent, ils sont une force. Et je crois que les telcos n'utilisent pas assez de leur force parce qu'ils ne veulent pas travailler ensemble. Je crois que ça, c'est pas le cas. Bon, ok, ça c'est mon opinion.
Bon, concrètement pour les telcos, est-ce qu'on pense, je dis oui d'abord à la question. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on revient au sujet de, maybe I'll speak English because Stephen, actually this was initially from his presentation where he talked about infrastructure and the importance of the bedrock in infrastructure. And by definition, the modern infrastructure has been laid by the telcos all across this continent. And it wasn't so long ago. So the next step now is, I personally believe, and perhaps I'm biased because I'm in that, is the financial infrastructure. Because one thing that has never happened anywhere is where there's a group of people is a lack of financial infrastructure. Whether we're trading objects, people always quickly find a way to have a financial infrastructure. And the modern financial infrastructure for Africa, I truly believe, has started with mobile finance. It's about how are we going to democratize that? How do we do that in a way that breaks barriers? Because right now there are still many, many barriers between our various central banks, our various regulations. And to your questions about telcos working together, perhaps I'll actually agree with you that maybe in general we don't, but more recently, MTN and Orange are working on interoperability together. That's a great start. It is critical because for the African customer, they really don't care, and they will care less and less about whether it's MTN or it's Orange. They want to send money easily. They want to talk to people in other countries or in their own country very easily across the network. You know, we don't really, from a customer's point of view, they don't care about whether you know, they're jumping from an Orange base station to a Tigo base station. What's important is I don't want my conversation to be interrupted. I want to be able to send across currencies until we hopefully have a single currency, but we don't have time, so we can't get into crypto money, cryptocurrencies and the future. But the future is infrastructure across telcos, I truly believe, and that is already beginning to happen. And I personally see it more happening in the telcos than anywhere else in the sort of industrial complexes across our continent.
Great. I guess we kind of,
Can I just
please.
quib in? My friends from the GSMA are here, so I'll be careful what I say. But I think my point being that interoperability is no longer as sexy as it used to be. You only need to look at WhatsApp and what they've done with data and voice for you to realize that now it doesn't matter who I'm talking to in this room over WhatsApp. I don't care who their carrier is, right? All I care is there a Wi-Fi network? And sometimes it's not even a full Wi-Fi network. It could be a sub Wi-Fi network. Well, that's a private enterprise. It could be a private enterprise too. It could be an ISP. So I say that to say that in some of these infrastructure environments, we find that the disruption is also happening within. That said, when we now look at payments as the future, I mentioned Libra with Facebook. Everybody in this room should be deathly scared of Facebook right now. Deathly scared, because if Libra does what it's supposed to do, then mobile wallets are going to die, effectively. And what that means is everybody else has to think ahead and see what they can do to actually benefit from that. And it's a very scary but glaring but obvious thing. And at the time where MTN was trying to kill WhatsApp, they tried, and here we are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Although it's quite unclear whether.
Gilles, I have to say something about
Okay.
that. As much as we're completely out of time, I agree with you on if Libra does what it's supposed to do. But you started with if, which is important, I think, in your sentence. Not when Libra does, because we're not there yet. But I will just say one thing. One thing that's been true about money since the beginning of time, it's about trust.
Thank you. So time's up. Merci beaucoup. Thank you everyone. Et c'était passionnant. Ça va dans beaucoup de directions. Ce que l'on voit, c'est qu'il y a quand même un potentiel extraordinaire pour continuer ces conversations. Et au-delà de ça, je trouve que c'est vraiment il y a un momentum en ce moment emmené par la transformation digitale qui est juste fascinant pour toute l'Afrique. Donc merci beaucoup à tous les panélistes pour votre participation à cette passionnante discussion.
Merci beaucoup, Gilles. Avant de vous lever, s'il vous plaît, moi, je vais m'asseoir ici, je vais faire comme si je faisais partie des panélistes. S'il te plaît, prends-moi en photo. Et après, je vais frimer sur les réseaux sociaux. Je vais dire que j'ai sorti toutes les belles idées de cette table ronde, s'il te plaît. Ouais. C'est bon, elle est belle la photo. Merci beaucoup, applaudissez très fort. Merci à vous. Nathalie, je vais te garder avec moi, juste pour 20 minutes.
Présentation, parce que ça a tout été dit dans ce sens-là, mais je veux essayer de parler. Do you have my presentation? Vous avez ma présentation? It's coming. I need to click. Oh, OK. J'espère que tout le monde va voir. Alors, moi, je veux parler du côté talent en détail. Et je crois qu'aujourd'hui, on a souvent la question de nos systèmes universitaires où l'éducation ne produit pas le talent qu'on cherche. Et le côté gouvernement va vous dire, j'ai pas assez d'argent pour devenir un MIT, alors qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Je veux sauter tout ça parce que vous le connaissez, 11 millions d'Africains, jeunes Africains qui entrent dans le système de workforce chaque année, une grande partie qui ne trouvent pas de boulot. Et aujourd'hui, avec the way we're going, même si c'est très optimiste, seulement 100 millions sur 450 millions de jeunes Africains en 2050 auront du boulot. Hein? So that means 350 million people. Et ça crée des problèmes, je vais tout skip ça. Mais ça, c'est important pour moi. En termes de funding gap qu'aujourd'hui il y a dans le côté skills and knowledge, c'est 96% en Afrique, à cause des investissements qui se passent au niveau des gouvernements nationaux par rapport à l'investissement dans le recherche et développement. On a un funding gap de 96%. Je vais te laisser prendre ta photo, je ne sais pas si tu l'as pris, super. Je voulais aussi parler du fait qu'on parle aujourd'hui du digital beaucoup, mais j'aimerais aussi dire que en dehors du digital, il y a en Europe et ailleurs, on parle du carbon economy, bioeconomy, hydrogen economy, methanol economy, economies of functionalities. So, il me semble qu'aujourd'hui, on doit avoir une plus large discussion, même au niveau des telcos, sur où on se trouve et on va où aussi. Maintenant, je vais vous dire ce que je fais après, mais je vais vous parler aussi des challenges des scientifiques qui parlent des mêmes choses que vous. Et research infrastructure, funding gaps, support du gouvernement, brain drain. So, il y a toujours les mêmes problèmes dans tous les écosystèmes, même dans l'écosystème de recherche. Et puis, le grand problème, bien sûr, c'est où sont les femmes. En Afrique, c'est vrai qu'on a beaucoup plus de femmes qui vont même dans le côté computer science.